Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the General Manager, International and Global Partnerships from nibTravel, Mr. Dylan Wilkinson.
Good morning, everyone, and what a wonderful privilege this is to be speaking to you here in Bangkok. There is literally no place I would rather be in the world at the moment. I spoke to my wife just before coming on stage. She's dealing with 2 sick children, 2 sick dogs, a nanny with COVID, school holidays and a full-time job. So there is no place I would rather be right now. I want to thank the previous speakers and the panel for their insights that they've shared. And my job here today is to continue the discussion around duty of care and to share some of the common issues and trends that we're seeing in our business that travellers encounter, and look at some of the other safety and risk mitigation areas that we see travel suppliers associated with travelling. I also want to take a look at this from the context of leisure travel, and something else that Lee coined this morning, I like this, is bizcation. I think that's a really cool term as well. So what do we know? I love data, and I'm telling you that we use data a lot in our business to help shape our business strategy. So firstly, this might come as a shock to you, but COVID-19 has shifted the behaviour and customer expectations. In a recent survey of our travellers, 2/3 agree that the pandemic has made them feel less confident to travel overseas, especially to places where they cannot get back to their home country in a crisis. Concern regarding contracting COVID-19 has dropped actually to just 6% of our travellers, which was down from 10% in June 2022, even though 95% of our customers still are looking for some sort of COVID-19 cover as part of their policy. This number is even greater when it comes to corporate travel. Awareness of the importance of risk mitigation and travel insurance has never been stronger. Travellers and businesses are asking more questions of suppliers and having longer, deeper conversations to try and understand and ensure their duty of care obligations are met. The understanding of a business's duty of care is also heightened post the pandemic, and employees and travellers have an increased expectation in this space. The business travel landscape is rebounding, but it's complex. You've heard a lot of this conversation this morning. Annual business travel spending is expected to slow in 2023, but will pick up to nearly hit pre-pandemic levels by the end of 2024, with an estimated $1.4 trillion of spending. Of our customers, 79% of adults in the APAC region planning to travel this holiday season are actually changing their plans because of the additional inflationary and cost pressures associated. However, they would consider adding time to a trip if the company's paying. Sales trips are one of the biggest drivers for the return of international travel, with 43% of companies sending employees abroad for sales trips. This is followed by leadership meetings at about 32% and client work, 31%. Business conferences, interestingly, however, stood at 4th place, with only 15% of companies willing to make an overseas trip to attend a conference. In Australia, of those intending to travel in the next 12 months, 70% plan to travel more often in the future, and 80% of these travellers are expected to blend some form of business and leisure travel together. We know that flexible and remote working has increased our ability to add a leisure trip to a work trip, and we've seen travellers looking for travel options to meet these needs. But this change has also changed the risk profile and our duty of care. It's estimated the leisure travel market will be worth around $497 billion by the end of 2022. This growth is, as you know, being driven by a number of factors, including increasing number of business travellers, the rise of the millennial traveller, and the globalisation of our businesses. In our business, the insurance game, the number of claims received for travellers on blended travel trips has increased exponentially in the last 12 months as the world has reopened. And the impact spans all types of claims. It's not just the high-cost medical claims, it's everything that the policy covers. So how does this impact your duty of care? One of the silver linings of COVID that we've talked about a lot in the last couple of days is this changed world and the newfound freedom and flexible ways of working. Bleisure continues to change the tourism landscape by adding places that were previously not known to be tourist attractions. This is possibly an opportunity. It's an avenue of attracting potential tourists through reducing perceived risk and has not received much attention to date. We should be thinking of trying to convert people who visit a destination for reasons other than a vacation, or people who are possibly even required to visit that location into tourists who voluntarily return to the destination for a holiday. But we also need to consider how these destinations change the risk profile and what we need to do from a duty of care perspective. The risks associated with travel have become more complex. Too often, as the intensity of threats increase and become more prevalent in our society, we overlook this fact. The lines can get blurred now around where the responsibility lies for our travellers' safety and care. But holistically and overwhelmingly, it's so important that there is transparency around how we identify and manage risks at all levels of the supply chain. Already we've seen a complexity surrounding international travel with more rules, regulations and border entry requirements than ever before. Whilst these are relaxing, both traveller and travel industry, as an industry, we need to uplift our education and ensure that there is a plan when things go wrong. Lee mentioned before the level of global anxiety around the risks associated with travel, and we've also seen a sharp rise in mental health claims associated with stress and anxiety. This is something we need to be aware of in the context of our duty of care, and we need to have a plan. There's an increase of media reporting of incidents. How we communicate, the policies, the processes we've got in place, and how we manage these messages as an organisation, believe it or not, relates to duty of care as well. We have a care to our organisation, but we also have a care to our customer. We need to have a plan. The world is a very litigious place. With a heightened risk of litigation in recent years in the corporate world, there's a new emphasis on corporate duty of care, especially as it relates to health, safety and security, which extends to the bleisure traveller, and we need to plan for these components. Something like trip delay or cancellation might seem straightforward, and it is, but we're seeing a huge increase in the complexity of things like medical claims and the confusion around the various risk mitigation plans and who's responsible. Is it the employer? Is it the traveller? Is it the government? Is it the insurance company? Is it workers' compensation? The answer is, it depends, and it's complex. We need to make sure we understand the environment, we operate in and provide solutions that will address the risks that exist. I want to change gears a little bit now and provide a bit of an example in my space as to how this plays out. Imagine, if you will, packing up your partner to join you on a business trip. You're traveling to another country. For all intent and purposes, the trip's paid for. You add an additional flight and a couple of extra days to take your partner with you. It's a perfect arrangement, and we all do it. That's the reason for bleisure, right? Then imagine on your second last day, your client invites you to a dinner. Also invites your partner to come along. You're excited, it's a really fancy restaurant, and you pack yourself up and you jump into a cab to head off. And then bang, you're involved in a car accident. You end up in hospital overnight, and as soon as the incident occurs, the hospital informs your employer, and then steps are taken to ensure you have the assistance of their corporate travel insurer, and local on-the-ground support is provided. But what about your partner? In this instance, it turns out they weren't covered by their corporate travel policy, but thankfully, their employer understood their duty of care and explained this to you before booking the trip. Your corporate travel agent also made you take out a separate policy for your partner, and as a result, their treatment was covered. Now, in this particular example, the medical and hospital costs alone were over 100,000 Australian dollars. There was a medical repatriation flight for an additional $60,000 required to bring this person back to Australia. And this is exactly what happened to one of our customers when they took their partner on a work trip to Asia recently. Now, thankfully, the claim was paid, the customer was brought home, and both our insured and their partner, their life has returned to normal now. But what if it wasn't? Can you imagine the alternative? Can you imagine if the corporate travel partner wasn't aware of the risks, wasn't aware of the company's corporate insurance policy, and that it may not cover their spouse, and they didn't ask the question? Too often, we fear having a potentially uncomfortable conversation which can have dire consequences. As we know, we all in this room have a duty of care to our travellers, our employees, and our clients to ensure we have a plan. So what can we do? COVID's given us all a heightened risk awareness. Our ability to work flexibly has opened further the world from a leisure perspective and has increased the leisure market in size and complexity. Lee and the previous speakers have spelled out some of the real practical applications and actions and requirements surrounding our duty of care and the ISO standards. From ensuring traveller assessments, organisations have appropriate checks and balances in place to ensure their travellers are fit to travel, that mandatory booking processes are in place to ensure booking channels can be used for all forms of transport and accommodation, and that they're outlined very clearly to staff and they're vetted, that accommodation selection is aligned to not only manage cost, but to manage risk, that all areas of the supply chain have done their due diligence and work and have clear processes in place to help address traveller safety, both before and during the trip, and that mechanisms are in place to support should something go wrong. These are all critical in fulfilling our duty of care and to avoid falling foul of potential issues when travelling. So to crystallise, I think it's pretty simple. Make sure you've got the policies in place that are easy to understand, the nuances in culture and risk destinations that your team or clients are travelling to. Create a duty of care playbook, and as Liz mentioned, make sure that everyone knows about it, they understand where to get it. Offer solutions where appropriate and find good partners who can help you implement them in need. More critically, I think, just make a plan and have a conversation. That's critical to us fulfilling our duty of care obligations. Thank you to everyone in the room for your time this morning. Thanks again to PATA and the GBTA. Enjoy the rest of the conference and the program. Thank you.